everyone, Ashley Mailloux and Nicole Russo here with the DRF. We're going to take a look at one of the stakes races this Saturday, January 25th, out at Oaklawn Park. The late pick 4 will get kicked off with race number 9, the Martha Washington. 3-year-old fillies in the spotlight here, competing at 1 mile and a 16th on the main track. And Nicole, it's not necessarily a huge field here with 6 entered, but a couple of big names in here, including Quietside on the inside, as well as the number 4, Her Laugh.
Yeah, Unbeaten, Her Laugh, and Quietside, who showed a lot of promise last year. And this year's field, although small, I think is interesting in terms of the Kentucky Oaks Trail because you have some lightly raced horses here on the upswing, but then you also have a couple of horses who have run behind presumptive Eclipse champion Immersive, who of course is sidelined from the Oaks Trail, but as well as fellow Eclipse finalist Good Cheer, who we'll be seeing this spring. So it's an opportunity to begin evaluating the class of some of these horses moving forward, as well as just what happens Saturday.
We'll take a look at the time form U.S. pace projections here for the Martha Washington. We talked about Her Laugh being undefeated. She's been very forward, especially last time out when she stretched out. Obviously, the fractions were softer coming out of a 6-furlong race to a mile and 70 yards at the fairgrounds, but she made the lead pretty easy there, and even Quietside likes to be forward.
Yeah, and Quietside having to kind of show some of her foot from the rail might make this more difficult for her in a larger field. With this being a smaller field, I think it gives her the opportunity to work out a trip. Her Laugh, one of a couple in here by Practical Joke, who his progeny have shown the class to run around 2 turns, turn in creditable efforts around 2 turns when it's called for. But I do think that they're at their best at about up to a mile. So I think it'll be interesting to see what Her Laugh does. And really the wild card for me in terms of the pace, I think it'll be interesting to see what Adeera does. In some of her better efforts, she has been on the lead, including the year's end last out in Oaklawn. She was briefly on top. I think it could be very interesting if they'd let her roll and sort of not take that away from her.
And if the pace is honest here in the Martha Washington, do know that the number 5, Gowells Delight here does have the late pace flag attached to her. We'll kick it off, though, here with the number 1, Quietside, who was owned and bred by Shortleaf Stables. They're based in Arkansas. And we'll take a look at one of her performances. We won't go back to her most recent effort, but we'll go back to 2 races to Keeneland in the Grade 1 Alcibiades, where she ends up being 3rd in here. I thought it was a good performance, and you already kind of hit on it already, Nicole. The winner there, Immersive. We know the resume that she was able to rack up last year in 2024.
Yeah, and I thought this was a very good effort for Quietside in her first time around 2 turns. I think sort of showed that mental hurdle of the 2 turns a little bit by being late to switch leads. Was obviously still learning in that race. And then it was her second Grade 1 placing behind Immersive, and then came out of that to run second in the Goldenrod to Good Cheer, who is unbeaten. Actually improved her buyer there, kind of showing she's figuring out the 2-turn game a little bit, I think. A filly who has been promising and still, I think, with a lot of upside.
Yeah, you mentioned the buyer improvement. She went 8 from the Alcibiades to an 82 last time out. The 2, Adeera, next up in the field. She's just 1 for 6 so far in her career. She was able to win on debut sprinting at Churchill at the 5.5 furlong distance. And you made a note of it last time out in the year's end. That was her first start at Oaklawn Park. It was a muddy track, and she was more forward. And maybe there's some upside with her making that second start off the freshening.
And I do think there's going to be upside with the progeny of Authentic. Of course, the 2020 delayed Kentucky Derby winner. We talked so much that year about how kind of the delay in the Triple Crown Road benefited him. He was a horse who was getting to his best at the end of his 3-year-old year. So his freshman statistics kind of not at the top of the class, but I do think there is more to come from his progeny, and that makes Adeera and some of his other runners very interesting to me as they start getting into more of these 2-turn races.
We know that the trainer, Kenny McBeek, had a very big year last year, one of those horses being Torpeda Anna, the filly, as well as Mystic Dan. And he has 2 chances in the Martha Washington. One of them is the number 3, Charge Madyan. We'll take a look at one of her efforts last time out. It was her second start at Oaklawn Park. It was over a muddy track. And it seemed to me, Nicole, curious to get your thoughts, she seemed much more comfortable being forward in this race, and it really worked out for her well. She ends up drawing clear easily in here.
Yeah, I think some horses, and this is kind of what interests me about Adeera as well, when you sort of let them go and don't take that away from them, I think they just get more comfortable and can carry their speed a little bit longer. Another horse who just seems to be improving finished behind next out winners in both of her first two starts. She's taken a step forward in each start while doing so. And obviously liked Oaklawn, although a couple of horses in here who I'd like to see perform as well as over a fast track as they did over a muddy track.
And great point about the winners, especially that race two back. The winner was her stablemate, who ended up scoring an upset not too long ago down at the fairgrounds. The number 4, Her Laugh, she's undefeated coming into this race. Both of those wins, though, elsewhere. Churchill Downs at the 6 furlong distance, more recently at the fairgrounds, going 1.70 miles. And I talked about it earlier from the pace perspective. I mean, I know she was forward last time out, Nicole, but she sort of walked, especially to that opening half, 49 flat, and she was just in front of the field by several lengths at that point.
Yeah, she did sort of get an ideal pace scenario last out, although impressive as could be. I'm not going to take that away from her. But as I mentioned when we were talking about the pace, she's one of a couple in here for Practical Joke. And, he was tough as nails. He was able to run around 2 turns with several good placings around 2 turns, but really at his best going around 1 turn at 7 furlongs at a mile. And we've seen that from some of his better progeny, like Ways and Means and Domestic Product last year. Both of them good 2 turn efforts, but grade 1 winners at 7 furlongs. So that sort of makes me take a harder look at his 2 progeny in this field as we move ahead in these 2 turn races.
The 5 is the other horse in the field for Kenny McPeak. As the 3 here, Take Charge Madyan. But this filly a little different than the other one. She was able to put it all together ready to roll on debut. And kind of looking at that race visually, Nicole, I thought it was really impressive. I mean, she ends up drawing clear in there. And I guess the big question is, while impressive as it looked visually, what did she really face in there? And now she's going to have to step up to graded stakes competition for the first time.
Yeah, and I think she has found a salty field, even if it is a small one here, even though a couple of others are coming out of Maiden Company. As we said, they have faced good horses, they have faced next out winners. Gowells Delight does look like she might get an ideal pace scenario, as you highlighted with our time form pace projector. She is the other filly in here by Practical Joke.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the trip that she gets. Obviously, the debut was one thing, but you never know what'll happen second time out, as we talked about the step up into stakes competition. And then to round out the field is the long shot, 20-1 on the morning line for the number 6, Legal Empress, who has been there every step of the way so far. She's yet to miss the board. She started her career on the grass at Remington Park, and so far in her 2 efforts at Oaklawn, she's looked good. I guess my concern with her is she's sort of a need the lead type. And I'm not sure in here if she necessarily will get the lead, but she does have that outside post.
Yeah, she is ideally drawn outside of the other speed, but I think she's perhaps just not the same class as some of the other speed. I think she'll want to be right there, but she's going to find kind of more difficult horses facing her early if she is a need the lead type than she has in her other outings.
All right, that's the field of 6 for the Martha Washington. Nice purse here of $300,000. And it's time for our top pick here. And I mentioned this is an interesting race. It's going to kick off that late pick 4. And we don't necessarily get that creative. We both went to the number 1, Quietside, who is 8-5 on the morning line. And I think, Nicole, when you look at her, it's really just to this point what she's faced. And for her, this is probably significant class relief.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to talk about a stakes race as, getting class relief, but when you look at what she's faced, 2 of the 3 Eclipse Award finalists for the champion 2-year-old filly of 2024. She's been knocking heads with and doing it well, immersive and good cheer. I just couldn't get past her as the class of the race. I see we use some of the same horses behind her. I see Quietside perhaps overhauling a game Her Laugh in the stretch. I just expect her to run that way based on pedigree. And yeah, I do think Adeera could get a piece of it. I think this is a consistent filly with a lot of upside.
And Adeera will certainly offer value on the board. She's 10-1 on the morning line. But both of us go to the 1 Quietside on top. 1-4-3-2 for Nicole. 1-3-4-5 for me. It's the Martha Washington this Saturday at Oaklawn. Good luck.